You have felt it before. That quiet, aching feeling that no matter how many people surround you, something inside you remains unseen. You have sat in rooms full of laughter and still felt the weight of a silence that no one else seemed to notice. You have tried to explain what you carry inside and watched the eyes of people you love glaze over, not out of cruelty, but because they simply cannot see what you see. That loneliness is not a flaw in your story. It is a signature of your calling. There is a particular kind of isolation that follows the chosen. It is not the isolation of rejection, though rejection has found you more times than you deserved. It is something deeper, something that sits beneath the surface of every ordinary conversation and reminds you that you were not built for ordinary. You have walked into spaces and felt immediately like a stranger in a land that should have been home. You have loved people deeply and still sensed that no one truly knew the version of you that exists in the quiet hours. In the middle of the night when the world is asleep and something inside you is wide awake, reaching, searching, pressing toward something you cannot yet name. That feeling is not a malfunction. That feeling is a marker. God does not place a calling on a life and then surround that life with people who fully understand it. He places the calling first, and then he begins the slow, sacred work of making the vessel worthy of what it carries. The misunderstanding you have experienced is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that you are being set apart. Think about every moment in your life when you felt out of place. Think about the friendships that dissolved without warning, the doors that closed before you could step through them, the seasons when your voice felt like it was disappearing into air. The world told you those moments were failures. Heaven tells a different story. Every closed door was a redirection. Every dissolved friendship was a pruning. Every season of silence was God pressing his ear close to the ground of your life, listening for the moment you were finally quiet enough to hear him. The chosen ones are not the loudest in the room. They are not always the most celebrated or the most understood. More often, they are the ones sitting in the corner, carrying something too large for small conversation. They are the ones who have grieved alone in seasons that looked successful from the outside. They are the ones who have kept going not because they always had the strength, but because something inside them refused to let them quit. That refusal is not stubbornness. That refusal is divine. You were not meant to blend into this world. You were never designed to dissolve into the crowd and become another face in the background of someone else's story. You were made to stand out, and the painful truth about standing out is that for a long time, it feels like standing alone. The chosen path is rarely a crowded one. Most people will take the wide road because it is comfortable, familiar, and lined with approval. But you have always felt the pull of something narrower, something harder, something that costs more and gives back in ways that cannot be measured by human standards. The isolation you have felt is not punishment. It is preparation. God separates what he is about to elevate. Before anything is placed in a position of influence, it is first placed in a position of refinement. The fire does not destroy the chosen. It purifies them. And the loneliness you have carried is part of that fire, burning away every false identity, every performance, every version of you that was built to please people rather than to fulfill purpose. You may have cried in seasons when everyone around you seemed to be thriving and you felt stuck. You may have wondered why your prayers seemed to bounce off the ceiling, while others around you seemed to receive answer after answer. You may have questioned whether God had forgotten your name. He has not forgotten your name. He has been whispering it in the heavenly places while you were still learning how to listen. The delay was not denial. The silence was not abandonment. The wilderness was not your destination. It was your training ground. There is a reason you are here in this exact moment. There's a reason this message found you today, in this particular season of your life, when the weariness has climbed so high you can barely see over it. This is not coincidence. This is divine appointment. Heaven has not brought you this far to leave you standing at the edge of your breakthrough without crossing over. God does not build altars to disappointment. He builds altars to testimony. The chosen ones are the ones who endure what others refuse to endure. They are the ones who keep their hands lifted in worship when their legs have stopped working. They are the ones who whisper yes to God in the darkest part of the night when every logical reason to say yes has vanished. That is you. That has always been you. And the God who sees every hidden tear, every private wrestling match, every moment you chose faithfulness when faithlessness would have been easier, that God has not looked away from your life. He has been leaning in. The prophet Jeremiah understood this loneliness. He called Kufor before he was born, set apart before he drew his first breath, and the road that followed was not smooth or celebrated. He was misunderstood by the people he was sent to serve. He wept so deeply that an entire book of the Bible carries the weight of his tears. And yet the word of the Lord that came to him was not a word of abandonment, but a word of irrevocable assignment. Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Before your mother knew your name, before the world had any record of your existence, before you had done anything to earn it or lose it, God knew you. He set you apart. He appointed you. The loneliness you have carried is not evidence that God made a mistake choosing you. It is evidence that what He placed inside you is so specific, so singular, so sacred, that only He fully understands the depth of it. You were chosen because you were the strongest or the most qualified. You were chosen because He looked at your spirit and saw something He could work with, something He could breathe on, something He could use to alter the course of lives that have not yet crossed your path. The isolation you have known is coming to an end, not because the road ahead will be easy, but because you are entering a season where what was hidden inside you is beginning to surface. The preparation is giving way to the presentation. The hidden season is shifting into the revealed season. God does not keep His chosen ones in the shadows forever. He keeps them there long enough to shape them, and then He steps in. Right now, all across this earth, there are others like you, others who have felt this same particular loneliness, this same sacred ache, this same knowing that they were made for more than what they have been living. They are waking up. They are finding their voices. They are stepping out of the shadows of misunderstanding and into the light of their divine assignment. You are not alone in this. You have never been alone in this. If this message is reaching the core of something inside you that has been waiting for someone to finally name what you have been carrying, then pause right now and type 333 in the comments. Let it be your declaration that you recognize yourself in these words. Let it be your signal to heaven that you are awake, that you are ready, and that you know, deep in the bones of your spirit, that you were chosen for this exact moment. 333 is more than a number. It is a covenant. It is your way of saying, I am here, I am seen, and I belong to the one who set me apart before the world ever had a chance to define me. You are not the product of your pain. You are not the sum of your rejections. You are not the outcome of every season that did not go the way you planned. You are the chosen of God, called before you were born, set apart before you drew your first breath, appointed to carry something into this world that only you can carry. The loneliness was never your ending. It was only ever your beginning. And that beginning is not behind you anymore. It is happening right now. In this moment. In this quiet recognition between your spirit and the spirit of the living God, who looked at all of creation and still chose you specifically, intentionally, and without apology. You already know what it feels like to be in the room but not truly seen. You already know the particular sting of being present and yet somehow invisible, of pouring yourself out for people who look past you towards someone else, someone louder, someone more obvious, someone who seems to carry the kind of beauty or talent or magnetism that the world immediately recognizes. You have lived in that shadow. You have smiled through that ache. And in the quietest moments of your most honest hours, you have wondered whether God sees what the world overlooks. He does. He always has. And the story of a woman named Leah is the proof that God has never once confused visibility with value. Leah was the older daughter of Laban, a woman described in Scripture with words that have been translated across centuries in ways that still carry their quiet sting. She was the one with weak eyes, or tender eyes, depending on the translation you hold. What is certain is this: she was not Rachel. And in the world she inhabited, not being Rachel was its own kind of sentence. Rachel was the one who stopped a man in his tracks at a well. Rachel was the one Jacob saw and immediately loved with the kind of love that makes a man willing to work 7 years just to earn the right to call her his. Rachel was radiant, obvious, chosen by human eyes in the way that the world chooses. Quickly, instinctively, based on what can be seen from a distance. Leah was given to Jacob through deception, veiled and silent in the darkness of a wedding night that was never meant to be hers. When the morning came and Jacob saw who was beside him, the Scripture does not soften what happened next. He had been tricked, and he knew it, and Leah knew he knew it. She began her marriage already knowing she was not the one he wanted. She began her life as a wife already carrying the weight of being second, of being the one who was there but not chosen, present but not celebrated, real but not desired. If you have ever loved someone who looked through you to find someone else, you understand something of what Leah carried. If you have ever worked hard and watched the recognition land on someone beside you, you understand something of what Leah lived. If you have ever given everything you had to a season, a relationship, a calling, and still felt like you were somehow not enough, then Leah's story is not ancient history. It is a mirror. But here is where the story shifts. Here is where God steps in, quietly, without announcement, without fanfare, in the way that he so often moves when the world is not paying attention. The Scripture says that when the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he opened her womb. Not Rachel's womb first. Leah's, the one who was overlooked, the one who was unloved, the one who woke up every morning in a house where she was tolerated but not treasured. God looked at what the world dismissed and decided that was exactly where he would place his hand first. Leah bore a son and named him Reuben, which means see, a son, because she said, "Surely my husband will love me now." She was still reaching, still hoping, still trying to earn through blessing what she desperately wanted to receive freely. She bore a second son and named him Simeon, saying, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one also." She bore a third son and named him Levi, and then something changed. Something broke open inside her. She bore a fourth son, and this time, she did not name him after her longing for Jacob. She named him Judah, which means praise, and she said simply, "This time I will praise the Lord." She stopped trying to use her blessing to earn love from a man who could not fully see her. She turned her eyes upward. She chose praise in a season that had not given her everything she prayed for. She did not have the love she wanted. She did not have the life she had imagined. But she had God, and she chose to let that be enough. And in that choosing, something of eternal significance was set in motion. Judah, the son born from Leah's praise in the middle of her pain. The son whose lineage would carry forward through the centuries, through kings and shepherds and exiles and returns, all the way to a manger in Bethlehem. The Messiah, the one the whole world had been waiting for, came through Leah. Not through Rachel, the beautiful one, the desired one, the one everyone could see. Through Leah, the overlooked one, the unloved one, the one with the tender eyes who cried herself to sleep in a marriage that was never supposed to be hers. God did not choose Rachel's lineage to carry the salvation of the world. He chose the woman who had learned to praise him in the middle of her unfinished story. He chose the one who had been passed over and still lifted her hands. He chose the one whose tears were so familiar to heaven that when she finally stopped crying for a man's approval and started crying out to God in worship, heaven moved through her in a way that changed the entire trajectory of human history. You need to hear this clearly. The season in which you feel most overlooked is often the season in which God is doing his most significant work through you. The moment when you feel least seen by the people around you may be the very moment when heaven is watching most closely. The chapter of your life that feels like the least impressive one, the one you would skip if you were telling your own story to someone you wanted to impress. That chapter may be the one through which God is threading the miracle that will define everything that comes after. Leah did not know she was carrying the lineage of the Messiah. She did not know that her tears, her longing, her years of loving a man who looked past her were being woven into the greatest story ever told. She only knew that she was in pain and that God had not looked away. She only knew that her womb had been opened when her heart was broken. She only knew that praise was the one thing she could offer, that no one could take from her. And that praise became a portal. That praise became the opening through which God released what she could never have manufactured through striving, through trying harder, through being better, through making herself more like Rachel. The blessing came not when she performed better, but when she surrendered deeper. The breakthrough came not through human approval, but through divine attention. You are Leah in more ways than you may be comfortable admitting. You have been overlooked. You have been the one who was present but not celebrated. You have poured out love and labor and faithfulness in seasons where the return felt nowhere near equal to the investment. You have watched others receive the recognition you quietly believed was also meant for you. And in your most honest moments, you have had to make the same choice Leah made, whether to keep reaching for what the world withholds or to turn your face toward the one who never once looked away. The unloved woman became the mother of the tribe of Judah. The overlooked one became the carrier of the eternal promise. The one with the tender eyes saw something that Rachel, for all her beauty, did not see first. She saw that God's faithfulness is not distributed according to the world's standards of worthiness. It is distributed according to his own sovereign, unshakable, relentless love for the ones he has chosen. Genesis chapter 9 verse 31 says, "When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he opened her womb, but Rachel remained childless." That verse is not just history. It is a declaration written across your life right now. When God sees that you are in a season of feeling unloved, unseen, undervalued, he does not avert his eyes. He opens something. He opens doors. He opens destinies. He opens the womb of what he placed inside you long before anyone else recognized it was there. He begins to bring forth in you what could never have come through human approval alone. Because what he is bringing forth in you is too sacred to be born from anything less than his direct and deliberate hand. Your tender eyes are not a weakness. They are the very thing that allows you to see what others cannot. Your sensitivity, the thing that has made you feel fragile in a world that celebrates hardness, is the same sensitivity that makes you able to carry the weight of what God has placed inside you, without crushing the people around you with it. Your quiet faithfulness in the seasons no one applauded is the very thing that God has been watching, recording, honoring in the unseen places. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not the lesser version of someone else's story. You are Leah, and Judah is coming through you, and the praise you offer in the middle of your unfinished chapter is the sound that heaven is leaning down to hear right now. The world sees Rachel. God sees you. And what God sees in you is not a consolation prize. It is a chosen vessel, set apart, prepared in the hiddenness, and about to be revealed in a way that the world will not be able to explain by any standard it currently has available to it. Everything that has been spoken over your life up to this moment, the isolation, the being overlooked, the years of faithful endurance in seasons that felt invisible, none of it was random. None of it was wasted. Leah praised God in the middle of her unfinished story, and heaven moved through her in ways she could not have calculated or predicted. And now, something is moving in your story too. Something is shifting beneath the surface of what you can see with your natural eyes. The same God who opened Leah's womb in a season of pain is opening something in you right now. And the question is, whether you are ready to receive what He is releasing. You were built differently. You have always known this. Not in an arrogant way, not in a way that made you feel superior, but in a way that made you feel separate. Like you were tuned to a frequency that most of the people around you could not quite pick up. You would walk into a room and sense things others missed. You would feel the weight of atmospheres, the undercurrents of conversations, the unspoken pain in a person's eyes that they were performing their way around. You would have ideas that arrived fully formed, almost as if they were handed to you, rather than generated by you. You would wake in the night with a clarity that disappeared by morning, a knowing that something greater was pressing toward you, but had not yet fully arrived. That is not imagination. That is not coincidence. That is frequency. The chosen ones carry a specific frequency. It is not mystical language divorced from reality. It is something that researchers who have spent their lives studying the human brain have begun to identify, measure, and document. Scientists call it gamma. It is the highest measurable brainwave frequency, operating at 40 cycles per second and above, and it is the frequency most consistently associated with heightened perception, creative breakthroughs, accelerated learning, and what neuroscientists describe as moments of sudden profound insight, what the rest of the world simply calls revelation. Children operate in this frequency naturally. Geniuses return to it consistently. Mystics throughout history have described entering states of awareness that neuroscience is only now beginning to map with instruments sophisticated enough to catch what the spirit has always known. And the chosen ones, the ones who have always felt that pull towards something deeper, something larger, something that ordinary life could not quite contain, they carry the neurological signature of this frequency even when they have never been told what it is called. But here is the painful truth that science and scripture agree on. As life accumulates its weight, as rejection layers upon rejection, as disappointment follows disappointment, as the noise of survival drowns out the signal of purpose, that frequency dims. It does not disappear, but it becomes buried under the static of stress, fear, chronic exhaustion, and the slow erosion that comes from years of living in a world that does not know what to do with someone like you. The gamma state, that place of supernatural clarity and creative power that you touched in your childhood and glimpsed in your most alive moments retreats. And without it, even the most gifted, most called, most chosen people find themselves grinding through life a fraction of the capacity God originally designed them to carry. This is where a discovery becomes important. Not as a replacement for faith, but as an instrument in the hands of the God who created both the brain and the spirit, and who has never once seen them as enemies of each other. A neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers, trained at MIT and connected through years of research to institutions including NASA, spent more than 30 years studying one question: why do some people seem to access a level of mental and creative performance that the rest of the population cannot reach? And is there a way to close that gap? His research, which spanned thousands of days of study and involved some of the most sophisticated brainwave analysis ever conducted, led him to a discovery that is as simple as it is profound. The brain can be guided. It can be led back to frequencies it has lost access to, and it does not require years of meditation practice, specialized training, or pharmaceutical intervention to do it. It requires sound. Specifically, it requires precisely engineered audio frequencies, a technology built on the principle of brainwave entrainment, the documented neurological phenomenon in which the brain naturally synchronizes itself to external rhythmic stimuli. When the right frequencies enter, through the ears the brain follows. Theta waves, which govern creativity, deep learning, and intuition, begin to rise. Gamma waves, the frequency of the chosen, of breakthrough, of revelation, begin to reactivate. Dr. Rivers developed what became known as the genius wave, a 7-minute audio track built from the precise combination of binaural beats and isochronic tones, calibrated through decades of research to guide the brain back into the state it was always designed to inhabit. 7 minutes. Not an hour of disciplined meditation, not a complex regimen. 7 minutes of listening, and the brain begins to remember what it was built to do. A woman named Maya, who had not slept a full night in over a year, who had been carrying the weight of a life that had stopped moving forward, listened to this audio for the first time at 3 in the morning. She sent a message the following day. She wrote that she could not explain what had happened, but that for the first time in 14 months she had slept. And on the Monday morning that followed, she received a phone call she had been waiting for across an entire year. Something had shifted, not just in her sleep, but in her perception, in her readiness, in the frequency she was carrying when opportunity finally arrived. Another person, a man who had been locked in financial stagnation for years despite working harder than almost anyone he knew, began using the genius wave daily. Within weeks, solutions he had been reaching for began arriving with a clarity that felt effortless. He described it as the difference between pushing a boulder uphill and watching a path appear in front of him that he had simply never been able to see before. The work was the same. The circumstances had not dramatically changed, but something in his mind had been unlocked, and that unlocking changed everything about how he moved through his days. A woman who had tried every spiritual practice available to her, who had attended retreats and used prayer apps and sat in silence trying to quiet a mind that refused to cooperate, tried the 7-minute audio one evening before attempting to pray. When it ended, she sat still for a moment and then did something she had not been able to do in weeks. She completed the first step of a returning practice she had been attempting to rebuild. She told the person who shared her story that it was the first time she had felt present, truly present, not standing outside a door looking in, but actually inside the room where her spirit could breathe. These are not isolated stories. More than 19,000 people have now used the genius wave, and the pattern is consistent. When the brain returns to the frequency it was designed to operate in, the life begins to reflect the design God always had in mind for it. Now, before the details of how to access this are shared, something needs to be acknowledged honestly. Some of you are already calculating in your minds. You are already weighing the cost against the doubt, against the long history of things that promised transformation and delivered disappointment. That response is not weakness. That response is wisdom earned through experience. You have invested in things before emotionally, financially, spiritually, and the return did not match the promise. Your caution is not cynicism. It is the natural protective response of a person who has been let down. So hear this clearly. The Genius Wave is currently available for $39. The standard price is $49. But today, through the link in the pinned comment, you can access it for $39. And it comes with a 90-day, 100% money-back guarantee, not 30 days. 3 full months to use it, to test it, to bring it into your daily 7 minutes. And if at the end of that time you do not feel that something has genuinely shifted, you receive every dollar returned without question. There is one critical thing that must be said. Because the results of this program have spread, counterfeit versions have appeared in places across the internet that are not authorized. The only legitimate access point is the link in the pinned comment and in the description of this video. Do not purchase from any other source. What you receive from an unauthorized seller is not the calibrated, research-backed audio that Dr. Rivers spent 30 years developing. It is a copy that carries none of the precision that makes the original effective. This offer at $39 will not remain open indefinitely. The pricing is time-limited, and the number of people who can access it at this rate before it returns to its standard price is not unlimited. If this has been landing in your spirit as something meant for you, do not set it aside and return to it later. The window is open right now. Step through it while it is in front of you. Because here is what the science and the scripture are both pointing toward in this moment. You were built to operate at a frequency that most of the world has never accessed. You were designed for clarity, for creativity, for revelation, for the kind of insight that makes people around you stop and ask how you knew, how you saw it, how you arrived at something that everyone else missed. That capacity was placed inside you before you were born. The years of struggle, of noise, of accumulated weight dimmed the signal but did not destroy it. And the God who designed your brain and your spirit in the same creative act has never stopped having tools available to restore what the world worked so hard to bury. 7 minutes, every day. That is the protocol. That is the on-ramp back to the frequency you were always meant to carry. And in the section ahead, the bridge between what you have just encountered here and the deeper spiritual ground. This journey is walking you toward. You will begin to understand why the restoration of your mental frequency and the fulfillment of your divine calling are not 2 separate conversations. They never were. They are the same conversation, spoken in 2 languages, that have always been describing the same extraordinary truth about who you are and what you were sent here to do. And so you stand here now, having heard both the language of science and the language of spirit, and perhaps something in you is wondering whether those 2 voices belong in the same conversation, huh? Perhaps there is a part of you that has been trained to keep them separate, to place faith on one side of a wall and research on the other, as if truth were a territory that could only be owned by one side at a time. But the God who spoke the universe into existence is the same God who designed the architecture of the human brain. The one who called you before you were formed is the same one who wired you for the frequency you have been trying to find your way back to. There is no wall. There never was. And as you carry that understanding forward, remember what Leah discovered in the middle of her most painful season. That holding two realities at once, the reality of your pain and the reality of God's hand moving through it, is not confusion. It is the posture of the chosen. That posture is yours to claim right now, and it is not a small thing. You have heard that name before. Perhaps not spoken aloud by anyone who loves you, but whispered in the spaces between sleep and waking, in the pause after you have given everything and received silence in return. In the moment when you looked in the mirror and the reflection that looked back did not match the one you believed God saw when He formed you. Not enough, too much, too quiet, too sensitive, too broken, too late. The giant that stands between you and the fullness of your calling is rarely a single dramatic enemy. It is most often the accumulated weight of every voice that told you the frequency you carry is not real, not valuable, not enough to make a difference in a world that rewards loudness and punishes depth. And you have been fighting that giant for a long time, not with weapons that the world would recognize, but with the quiet, daily, unglamorous weapons of the chosen, showing up when you had no strength left to show up with, choosing faithfulness in seasons when faithfulness felt like it was accomplishing nothing, keeping your hands open when every instinct told you to close them in self-protection, pressing forward into a calling that the people around you could not fully see, because the vision God placed inside you was never meant to be validated by human eyes before it was fulfilled by divine hands. That is not weakness. That is the warfare of the chosen. And it is the hardest kind, because it does not look like warfare from the outside. It looks like an ordinary life. It looks like a person going about their days with a quiet fire burning inside them that the world cannot quite see and cannot quite extinguish, no matter how many seasons of cold it sends. The invitation standing in front of you right now is not to fight harder by the world's standards, not to perform more impressively, not to manufacture a breakthrough through sheer willpower and exhausted striving. The invitation is to go deeper, deeper into the frequency you were designed to carry, deeper into the calling that was placed on your life before your name was known to anyone but God, deeper into the posture of praise that becomes the most powerful weapon available to you, not because it changes your circumstances immediately, but because it changes your orientation toward your circumstances. And in changing your orientation, it changes what heaven can release through you. The connection between your brain frequency and your spiritual posture is not coincidental. When the mind is locked in survival mode, when the constant noise of anxiety and self-doubt and unprocessed grief is running at full volume in the background of every thought, the spirit cannot hear clearly. The signal is buried. The calling feels distant. The God who is speaking directly into your life sounds like He is speaking from behind glass, muffled, present, but unreachable. This is not a faith failure. This is neurological reality. A brain operating in chronic stress produces cortisol at levels that actively suppress the regions responsible for creative insight, long-term vision, and the quiet receptivity that prayer and worship require. You are not spiritually weak. You may simply be neurologically overwhelmed. This is why the 7-minute daily practice that was described in the previous section is not separate from your spiritual life. It is an act of stewardship over the instrument through which your spirit operates in this physical world. When you take 7 minutes each day to guide your brain back into the theta and gamma frequencies, you are not replacing prayer. You are preparing the ground for it. You are quieting the noise that has been drowning out the signal. You are returning to the state that children inhabit naturally, the open, receptive, wonder-filled frequency in which the voice of God is not a distant echo, but a present and immediate reality. Your path to that place may feel long, and it may be costing you more than you expected, but you are living in a moment when the tools available to you are more sophisticated than anything previous generations had access to. You carry in your pocket a device that can play a 7-minute audio track capable of guiding your brain into the same receptive frequency that mystics and prophets and chosen ones throughout history found their way to through years of disciplined practice. God is not offended by the tools He inspired human beings to discover. He is the one who placed the curiosity in Dr. James Rivers that drove 30 years of research. He is the one who designed the brain to be entrainable, to respond to frequency, to remember what it was built for when it is given the right conditions to return. The giants standing between you and your miracle are not stronger than the God who called you. They are not more permanent than the promises He has spoken over your life. They are not more real than the frequency He placed inside you before you were born. But they are loud, and they are persistent, and they have been speaking long enough that some of their words have begun to sound like your own thoughts, like your own voice, like the reasonable conclusions of a reasonable person who has simply seen too much to believe that the best is still ahead. The best is still ahead, not because circumstances have guaranteed it, but because God has. And the God who sees what the world overlooks, the God who chooses the tender-eyed ones and the quiet ones, and the ones who have been trying to show up faithfully in seasons no one applauded. That God does not make promises He abandons halfway through the story. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 18 says, "The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day." Your path is getting brighter, not dimmer, not slower, brighter. The seasons of hiddenness were not the trajectory. They were the preparation for the trajectory. The unloved seasons were not the destination. They were the refinement process through which what was placed inside you was being made strong enough to carry the weight of what is coming. And what is coming is not a small thing. What God has been preparing in you through every overlooked season, every closed door, every moment of choosing faithfulness, when faithlessness would have been so much easier. What is coming through all of that is not a modest improvement on the life you have been living. It is a rising. It is the kind of rising that looks, from the outside, like something that happened suddenly, but that everyone who was watching closely knew had been building for years in the hidden places. It is the rising that the chosen ones experience when they finally stop trying to become someone else's version of enough and settle fully into the singular, unrepeatable, divinely designed person they were always meant to be. You are that person. You have always been that person. The giant that has been standing in your field, calling out, challenging you, telling you that you are not qualified, not ready, not equipped, not loved enough, not seen enough, not strong enough to step into what God has called you toward. That giant has been speaking too long, and you do not need to answer it with a louder voice. You do not need to defeat it by becoming something you were never designed to be. You need only to return to the frequency you were born carrying, to the deep and unshakable, knowing that the God who chose you is greater than every voice that has tried to unchoose you. There is a moment that comes in every chosen life when the accumulated weight of every hard season, every unanswered question, every night spent crying out to a God who seemed silent, suddenly resolves into clarity. Not because the pain disappears, Not because the circumstances transform overnight, but because something inside you shifts. A knowing settles. A peace that does not make logical sense according to the facts of your situation wraps itself around the most vulnerable parts of you and holds them steady. That moment is not random. That moment is God stepping in, and when God steps in, the trajectory of everything changes. The path ahead is brighter than the path behind. The morning sun is rising over your life, and the giant that has been standing in your field does not know yet what you are beginning to remember. It does not know that you were chosen. It does not know that the frequency you carry is one it cannot silence. It does not know that heaven has been watching this whole time, waiting for exactly this moment when you stop running from the calling and start walking toward it with everything you are. That walk begins now, not when circumstances improve, not when the approval finally comes, not when the giant falls on its own. Now, in this breath, in this choosing, in this moment of returning to who God said you were before the world had any say in the matter. There is a moment that heaven has been building toward in your life. You may not have been able to see it from inside the seasons you have been walking through, because the view from inside a wilderness is never the same as the view from above it. From inside, all you could see was the dust and the distance and the silence that felt like it would never break. But from above, from the place where God watches over everything He has set in motion, the view has always been different. From above, every step you took in the wilderness was a step in a direction. Every tear you cried in the hidden seasons was watering ground that was being prepared for something. Every night you spent holding on to a promise that had not yet materialized was a night that was being counted, recorded, honored by a God who wastes nothing and forgets no one. The miracle you have been waiting for is not late. It has never been late. It has been in process. And there is a profound difference between those two things that the chosen ones must learn to hold on to in the seasons when the process feels indistinguishable from abandonment. Late implies that the timeline was missed, that the window closed, that what was promised has been forfeited through delay. In process means that the work is still happening, that the hands that began it have not left it, that what looks like stillness from the outside is actually deep and deliberate movement beneath the surface. God does not operate on a timeline that human impatience can rush or human doubt can derail. He operates on a timeline that is calibrated to the fullness of what He intends to release, not just to the minimum version of it that would satisfy immediate longing. When He makes a promise, He is not promising the smallest possible expression of that promise. He is promising the fullest, most complete, most thoroughly prepared version of it. And that version takes time to build. It takes seasons. It takes kind of preparation that cannot be hurried without compromising the integrity of what is being prepared. Think about the most significant things in the natural world. A diamond is not formed quickly. It is formed under pressure, over time, through conditions that would destroy something less resilient. An oak tree does not emerge from an acorn in a season. It grows slowly, invisibly at first, building a root system beneath the ground that is far more extensive than anything visible above it, because the depth of the root determines the height the tree can safely reach. The most enduring things in creation are the ones that were formed in hiddenness, under pressure, over time, through processes that looked from the outside like nothing was happening at all. You are a diamond. You are an oak tree. You are something that has been forming under pressure in the hidden places, and the world has not yet seen what is about to emerge from the ground of your life. But heaven has. Heaven has been watching the root system develop. Heaven has been measuring the depth of what has grown beneath the surface of every hard season, every pressing, every night of tears that felt like they were falling into empty air, but were actually falling into the most fertile ground imaginable. The moment when God steps in is not always announced with thunder. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet shift in the atmosphere of your life. A door that has been closed for years suddenly opens without explanation. A person arrives in your life who carries exactly the key you needed for the lock you had stopped trying to open. A thought lands in your mind with such clarity and such certainty that you know it did not originate with you, that it came from somewhere, from the same source that knew your name before you were born and has been speaking it over you in every season since. That moment is closer than you think. The pressure you have been feeling in this season is not the pressure of things falling apart. It is the pressure of things coming together, the compression that precedes a zagmimand, the darkness that precedes a dawn, the silence that precedes the word that changes everything. The chosen ones learn, eventually, to read the difference between the pressure of destruction and the pressure of formation. And what you have been feeling, as hard as it has been, as long as it has lasted, carries the unmistakable signature of formation. You are being formed right now. Not broken, not forgotten, not punished, formed, shaped, prepared, made ready for what God has always intended to release through you, and the releasing is coming. It is pressing toward you with the same inevitability that the sun presses toward the horizon in the hour before dawn. You cannot stop a sunrise, and you cannot stop what God has set in motion over a chosen life that has held on through every season that tried to convince it to let go. The chosen ones are not the ones who never struggle. They are not the ones who sail through life untouched by loss or disappointment, or the grinding weight of seasons that refuse to shift. They are the ones who struggle and keep going. They are the ones who lose things and still choose to believe that the God who allowed the loss has not lost sight of the promise. They are the ones who wake up in the morning when every logical reason to get up has evaporated. And they get up anyway because something inside them, something that is not generated by their own strength, but by the Spirit of the living God that dwells within them, will not let them stay down. That is you. That has always been you. And the God who placed that rising force inside you did not place it there to have it wasted on a small life. He placed it there because what He has called you toward requires exactly this quality of resilience, exactly this depth of endurance, exactly this particular combination of sensitivity and strength that the world to try to tell you was a contradiction, but that heaven always knew was a design feature. Your miracle is not somewhere out ahead of you on a distant horizon that keeps receding as you walk toward it. Your miracle is already in motion. It is already moving through the channels that God prepared for it before the foundations of the world were laid. The people who are meant to carry it to you are already being positioned. The circumstances that need to align for it to arrive are already being aligned by hands that do not tire and do not forget and do not make mistakes. The God who is orchestrating your breakthrough is not working with incomplete information or limited resources. He is working with full knowledge, unlimited power, and a love for you that is deeper than any ocean and more consistent than any sunrise. Romans chapter 8 verse 28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." All things, not some things, not the comfortable things, not the things that made sense, not the things that fit neatly into the plan you had for your own life. All things, every hard season, every closed door, every relationship that ended before you were ready, every dream that seemed to die in the ground, every moment of feeling overlooked, undervalued, misunderstood, and unseen. All of it, every single thread, no matter how dark its color, is being woven by the hands of a God who knows exactly what the finished tapestry is supposed to look like. You cannot see the finished tapestry from your position inside the weaving. You can only see the thread you are currently in. But God sees the whole thing, and He is not confused by what He sees. He is not concerned. He is not second-guessing the design. He is working it faithfully, deliberately, with the kind of precision that only an all-knowing God can bring to the life of a person He has chosen for a specific and irreplaceable purpose. Your purpose is not in jeopardy. Your calling is not canceled. Your miracle is not lost. What was promised over your life has not been revoked by your hardest seasons. It has been deepened by them, strengthened by them, purified by them, made more powerful by the very process that felt like it was diminishing you. Because God never uses suffering to diminish what He has chosen. He uses it to refine it, to remove what was never part of the original design, to burn away everything that was added by the world and leave only what was placed there by heaven. What is left in you after all the burning is pure. What remains after all the pressing is strong. What stands after all the seasons that tried to take you down is the truest, most essential version of who God made you to be. And that version, the refined version, the pressed and proven and purified version of you, is the one that is ready for what is coming. That is the version of you that the miracle recognizes. That is the version that heaven has been preparing, not just for your sake, but for the sake of every life that yours is meant to touch, every person who is waiting, without knowing they are waiting, for the specific light that only you carry. Do not shrink back now. Do not close your hand around the seed of what God is doing just because the season has been long. Do not let the voice of reasonable doubt drown out the voice of the God who has been speaking over you since before you drew your first breath. The miracle is rising. It is moving. It is coming with the full force of heaven behind it, commissioned by a God who does not change His mind about the ones He has chosen, who does not grow weary of the promises He has made, and who is even now, in this very moment, working all things together for your good. You have come this far because something inside you recognized that this message was not accidental. You did not stumble into this space by chance. You did not find yourself here because an algorithm made a fortunate guess about what you needed today. You are here because the same God who called you before you were born, who watched over you through every season of hiddenness and pressing and refinement, who has been working all things together for your good, even when the working was invisible to your natural eyes, that God directed your path to this place at this precise moment in your life. And if He brought you here, then everything that has been spoken into your spirit through these words was intended specifically for you. That is not a small thing, and it deserves to be treated with the weight it carries. There is something that happens when a chosen one encounters a word that was meant for them. Something shifts in the interior, not on the surface, not in the emotions that rise and fall like weather, but deeper than that, in the place where the spirit knows what the mind has not yet fully processed. That knowing is what you are feeling right now, if you have been honest with yourself through every section of this journey. That knowing is the confirmation that you are not alone in what you carry, that the loneliness and the hiddenness and the long seasons of holding on without visible evidence have been seen, acknowledged, and held by a God whose attention never wandered from your life, even for a single moment. And when something real finds you, when a word lands with that kind of precision and weight, the natural response of a generous spirit is to want others to find it too. Not because you need to share content, not as a transaction, but because the chosen ones understand something about the nature of light. Light is not diminished by being shared. A candle does not lose its flame by lighting another candle, and the truth that has been spoken into your life in these moments does not become less powerful for you because it reaches someone else who needed it just as desperately. Think about the people in your life right now who are in a season that you recognize. You have been inside that season. You know what it looks like from the inside, the particular exhaustion of it, the specific quality of that silence, the way time moves differently when you are in the middle of a pressing that has no visible end. Think about the person who is sitting somewhere right now, feeling exactly the way you felt before these words found you, convinced that their longing is invisible, that their calling is a mistake, that the best of their life is behind them rather than ahead. That person exists. In fact, more than one of them exists, and they are within the reach of what has been released in this space. If this message has touched something real in you, if any part of what has been spoken here has landed with the weight of truth on a part of your spirit that needed to hear it, then the most powerful thing you can do right now, beyond receiving it for yourself, is to make sure it reaches the people who are waiting for it without knowing they are waiting. Share this message, not as a task, not as an obligation, but as an act of love towards someone whose name you already know, someone who came to mind while you were listening, someone whose face appeared in your imagination because your spirit recognized that they need exactly what you have been receiving. The chosen ones are not called to carry their revelation in isolation. They are called to carry it forward. The light that was placed in you was never meant to illuminate only your own path. It was meant to shine far enough that other wanderers in the dark could find their way to the same source. When you share this word, you are not promoting something. You are fulfilling something. You are acting in alignment with the nature of the God who gave you the light in the first place. The God who is light, in whom there is no darkness at all, and who designed light to spread by its very nature. So, share this. Send it to the person whose name is already in your mind. Post it where the people in your circle can find it. Let it travel through your hands to someone who is sitting in a season of hiddenness right now and needs to hear that they are not forgotten, that the pressing is not punishment, that the miracle is already rising even when the evidence of it has not yet become visible. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, this is the moment to do that. Not because a number on a screen is what matters, but because what is being built in this space is a community of chosen ones who are finding each other, recognizing each other, strengthening each other in the particular calling that the chosen carry. Every time you subscribe, you are saying yes to being part of something larger than a single message. You are saying yes to a continued conversation between your spirit and the truth that God has been trying to speak into your life through every available channel. Subscribing is your way of staying in the room where the word keeps coming, where the fire keeps burning, where the chosen ones keep gathering to remind each other of who they are and whose they are. Click the like button as well, not as a reflex, but as a response. If something in these words made your spirit sit up straighter, if something landed with the weight of recognition, if something here reflected back to you a truth about your own life that you had been struggling to articulate, then the like is your acknowledgement of that. It is your way of saying, this was real, this reached me, this matters. And in saying that, you make it more possible for the same words to reach the next person who is sitting somewhere in the dark, wondering if anyone can see them. There is also a way to partner with what is being built here that goes beyond a click. If you feel called to sow into this space, if something in your spirit rises up with a desire to be part of sustaining and expanding this work, there is a link in the description and in the pinned comment where you can give. Every contribution, no matter the size, is a seed. And the God who multiplies seeds into harvests does not look at the size of the offering before he decides whether to honor it. He looks at the heart it came from. If your heart has been moved and you feel the pull to give, trust that pull. It is not accidental. The community being built in this space is one of the most extraordinary things you will ever choose to be part of, because it is not built around a personality or a platform. It is built around a recognition that runs deeper than any of that. It is built around the shared experience of being chosen and not always understanding what that means, of being called and not always knowing where the call is leading, of carrying a light that the world does not always celebrate and sometimes actively tries to extinguish, and of finding in each other the reminder that the light is real, the call is real, and the God behind both of them is more real than anything this world can offer as an alternative. The comment section of this space is not just a comment section. It is a place where the chosen ones leave traces of themselves, where they say, "I was here. I heard this. Something in me woke up." When you engage there, when you leave a word, when you respond to someone else's word, you are participating in something that has eternal dimensions. You are building connection across distances that geography created, and that God is choosing to bridge through this space. Do not underestimate what that means. Do not scroll past without leaving something of yourself behind. You are not a passive receiver of what is being offered here. You are a participant in it. And the more fully you participate, the more the community around you is strengthened, the more the chosen ones in your reach are encouraged, and the more the space that God has appointed it for this work is able to expand into the lives that still need to find it. This space was not built overnight. It was built through consistency, through showing up with a word even in the seasons when the word felt heavy to carry, through believing that the chosen ones who needed this message would find their way to it at exactly the right time. Every person who watches, who likes, who shares, who subscribes, who gives, is a part of what makes that continuation possible. You are not a spectator in this story. You are a contributor to it. And your contribution, however it comes, matters more than you know. Because the chosen ones, who are still in the deepest part of their wilderness right now, the ones who have not yet found this space, the ones who are sitting in that particular loneliness that comes with carrying a calling that no one around them can fully see, they are going to find their way here. And when they do, they will find a community that was built in part because you stayed, because you engaged, because you chose to be part of something larger than your own individual journey through the wilderness. That is what the chosen ones do. They do not consume and move on. They plant and remain. They invest themselves in the spaces where God does. And they trust that the harvest from that investment will reach further than they can currently see. You have been given something real today. Something that landed in the deepest part of your spirit and shifted something that has needed shifting for a long time. The way you honor that gift is by staying connected to the source of it, and by making sure that the river of what flows through this space keeps flowing outward through your hands and your voice and your willingness to say to someone you love, "This found me, and I believe it will find you too." Arise, shine, share the light, subscribe to the fire, sow into the harvest, stay in the room. Because what is being built here is not finished, and neither are you And the God who brought you to this moment has no intention of stopping here. There's a particular kind of silence that the chosen ones know better than anyone else. It is not the silence of peace, though it can be mistaken for it from the outside. It is the silence of a season that has stretched so long that the waiting itself has become the landscape you live in. So familiar that you have almost stopped expecting it to change. You have learned how to function inside it. You have learned how to go about your days, how to smile at the right moments, how to answer the question of how you are doing with words that are true enough to pass, but not honest enough to cost you anything. You have become fluent in the language of a person who is still waiting, still believing, still holding on, but who has quietly adjusted their grip because the holding has been so long that the muscles have had to adapt just to keep the hand from opening completely. That silence is not the absence of God. It has never been the absence of God. But in the middle of it, when the days stack into weeks, and the weeks stack into months, and the months sometimes stack into years, the temptation to interpret the silence as absence becomes one of the most powerful forces the chosen ones face. Not because they are weak, not because their faith is insufficient, but because they are human, and the human heart was designed for connection and response and the visible. Evidence of a love that is present and active and moving on its behalf. Leah knew this silence. She lived inside it every day of a marriage that began in deception and continued in the particular quiet suffering of being tolerated rather than truly loved. She did not have a chapter of scripture written just for her comfort. She did not have a community of chosen ones to remind her that what she was carrying was sacred. She had the silence of her tent at night, the sound of her own breathing, the faces of her children who carried the evidence that God had seen her, even when the man beside her had not. She had the daily practice of choosing to believe that being seen by God was enough, even on the days when everything in her human heart cried out for more than that. And then there were the wilderness's seasons inside the wilderness, the seasons within the long season, where even the small consolations seemed to dry up, where the silence deepened and the evidence thinned, and the only thing left standing between her and complete despair was the stubborn, unreasonable, gloriously irrational decision to keep praising a God she could not see in circumstances she had not chosen. You know that decision. You have made it yourself more times than you have told anyone. You have stood in rooms that looked ordinary from the outside and made the internal choice, the one that costs everything and shows nothing, to keep believing when believing felt like the most illogical option available. You have chosen faith in the moments when the evidence for doubt was far more visible and far more compelling than the evidence for trust. You have kept your hand open when the most reasonable response to what life had given you would have been to close it permanently. That is not weakness dressed up as faith. That is the real thing. That is the faith that the 11th chapter of Hebrews was written to describe. The faith of the ones who held on without receiving the promise in their lifetime, who saw it from a distance and greeted it and kept walking toward it, even when it never fully arrived in the form they had imagined. The wilderness was not their failure. The wilderness was their testimony. And the wilderness you have been walking through is not your failure either. It is the territory through which God has been forming something in you that could not have been formed any other way. The wilderness does not produce what the comfortable seasons produce. Comfort produces gratitude, ease, the pleasant experience of a life that is meeting its basic requirements. But the wilderness produces something that comfort cannot manufacture, no matter how long it lasts. The wilderness produces depth. It produces the kind of rootedness that cannot be shaken by the next storm. because it was formed inside a storm that lasted long enough to drive the roots down further than any comfortable season would have required. It produces the kind of compassion that can only come from someone who has been in the dark long enough to know its specific geography, who can reach a hand towards someone else in the same darkness and say, "I know where you are, I have been here, and there is a way through." The chosen ones who come out of the wilderness carry something that the ones who never entered it simply do not have. Not because the wilderness is desirable in itself, not because suffering is a virtue to be sought, but because the God who walks with his chosen ones through the wilderness does not let the experience be wasted. He extracts from it every possible lesson, every available strengthening, every opportunity for the formation of character that the calling ahead will require. He is not a God who sends his people into hard places and then looks away until it is over. He is the God who is most present in the hard places, whose voice is often clearest in the silence of the wilderness. Precisely because all the noise of ordinary life has been stripped away, and there is nothing left to hear but him. And what he speaks in the wilderness is not condemnation. It is not a catalog of your failures or a review of your inadequacies. What he speaks in the wilderness is the same thing he has always spoken over you, the thing he spoke before you were born, the thing he spoke over every silent season and every tearful night and every morning when you woke up and chose, again, to keep going. He speaks your name. He speaks the calling. He speaks the promise that was made before the wilderness began. And that has not changed by a single syllable, because the wilderness has been long. The wilderness season is coming to an end, not because you have finally done enough to earn your way out of it, not because you have performed your faith with sufficient consistency or demonstrated your worthiness through sufficient sacrifice. It is coming to an end because God said it would, because the preparation that was needed has been done, because the roots have grown deep enough to hold the height that is coming, because the diamond has been under pressure long enough that it is now ready to be revealed. The wilderness was never your destination. It was always only ever your preparation ground. Psalm chapter 30 verse 5 says, "Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning." The night has been long, longer than you expected when it began, longer than you told yourself you could endure. And yet here you are, still enduring, still standing, still holding the name of God in your mouth, even in the seasons when speaking it felt more like an act of will than an act of joy. That is not a small thing. That is everything. That is the evidence that what is inside you is real, that the calling is genuine, that the chosen identity you carry is not a story you invented to make yourself feel better, but a truth that was placed in you by a God who does not make mistakes about the people he chooses. The morning is coming, not as a metaphor, not as a distant comfort designed to make the night more bearable, but as a reality that is pressing toward you with the full force of a God who keeps his word and who has never once in the history of his dealings with humanity broken a promise he made to someone he chose. Every person in the long lineage of the chosen who endured a wilderness came out the other side. Everyone. The wilderness has never been the final chapter in the story of someone God has called. It has always been the middle chapter, the one that makes the ending extraordinary. Your ending is not written yet, in the sense that you have not yet lived it, but it was written before you were born, in the sense that God already knows what it contains, already sees the fullness of what is coming through your life, and is already working backward from that fullness to ensure that everything in the present is being aligned toward it. You are not wandering, you are being led. The path through the wilderness has never been random. It has been deliberate, intentional, and watched over by the same eyes that saw Leah in her unloved tent and opened what had been closed, that see you in your silent season and are even now opening what has been shut. The silence is about to break, not with a whisper, but with the sound of a life that was being prepared in the quiet, finally stepping into the fullness of what it was always meant to carry. The morning is not far. The rejoicing that was promised for the morning is not conditional on your having cried the right amount, or waited the right way, or endured with perfect grace. It is conditional only on the promise of a God who said it, and He has never needed anything more than His own word to make something true. Hold on. The wilderness is ending. The morning is pressing in at the edges of the dark, and the chosen one who has been faithful in the hidden season is about to discover that what God does in the light is far beyond anything the darkness was able to diminish. You are closer than you know. You are further from where you started than you have allowed yourself to believe. And the God who brought you through every night you did not think you would survive is the same God who is opening the morning over your life right now. You need to understand something about the life you are living that most people around you will never fully grasp. The difficulty you have experienced is not random. The opposition you have faced is not coincidental. The specific pattern of resistance that has followed you through your most significant seasons, the way certain doors closed at the exact moment you were reaching for them, the way certain relationships fractured at the precise point when you needed them most, the way exhaustion seemed to arrive on schedule just when momentum was building, none of that is accidental. There is a warfare happening over your life, and the intensity of that warfare is directly proportional to the significance of what God has placed inside you. The enemy does not deploy his heaviest resistance against lives that pose no threat to his agenda. He does not invest in the disruption of callings that carry no power to shift the spiritual atmosphere of the places they are sent into. The level of opposition you have faced is not evidence that God has abandoned you or that your calling is too damaged to be recovered. It is evidence of the opposite. It is evidence that what is inside you is significant enough, dangerous enough to the plans of darkness, that extraordinary measures have been taken across the years of your life to prevent it from fully emerging. Think about that for a moment without flinching away from it. The resistance you have faced has been proportional to the threat you represent. You have been fought because you are worth fighting against. You have been targeted because what God placed in you, if it fully emerges, will shift something, change something, break something open that darkness has worked very hard to keep sealed. The warfare was never about your weakness. It was always about your potential. And here is what darkness has never been able to factor into its calculations, no matter how sophisticated its strategies against you have become. It cannot account for the God who is for you. It cannot outmaneuver a sovereign who sees every move before it is made and has already prepared the counter before the attack was launched. It cannot outlast a love that is from everlasting to everlasting, and that does not fatigue, does not waver, and does not revise its position on the chosen ones it has called, regardless of how long the battle has been or how many times the enemy has tried to reframe the outcome. The warfare over your life is real, but the outcome of that warfare was decided before it began. Not because you are powerful enough to guarantee it, but because the one who is for you is more powerful than anything that has ever been or ever will be arrayed against you. The battle belongs to the Lord, and He has never lost one. But there is something the chosen ones must understand about spiritual warfare that is often missed in the moments when the battle is loudest. and the pressure is most intense. The warfare is not just something that happens to you. It is something that happens through you. Every time you choose faith over fear in a moment when fear would be the more rational response, you are not just surviving the warfare, you are winning it. Every time you open your mouth to praise in a season when praise feels like the most unreasonable thing you could possibly do, you are not just enduring the battle, you are shifting it. Every time you choose to believe the word of God over the evidence of your circumstances, you are not just holding your ground. You are taking new ground that darkness is being forced to surrender. You have been winning battles that you did not know you were fighting. In the seasons when you felt most defeated, most overwhelmed, most like the weight was too much and the distance was too far and the silence was too deep, you were winning because you did not quit, because you did not let go, because the version of you that showed up to the next morning after the hardest night was not the broken version that darkness predicted, but the persistent version that heaven had always known would still be standing. That persistence is not yours alone. It is the fruit of the Spirit of God that dwells within you. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. That power is living in you, working through you, holding you up in the moments when your own strength has long since been exhausted. You have not been surviving on your own reserves. You have been sustained by a source that does not run dry, that does not have a bad season, that does not diminish in the face of whatever the enemy brings against it. The warfare has been fierce, but the resource sustaining you has been fiercer. Leah fought her battle in silence and in the dailiness of a life that did not look like a battlefield from the outside. Her warfare was the choice she made every morning to keep living faithfully inside a story that had not yet revealed why it was worth it. She did not have the advantage of knowing that her son Judah would carry the lineage of the Messiah. She fought her battle without that knowledge, with only the daily decision to praise a God who saw her when the world did not, and she won. Not because the circumstances changed in the way she hoped they would, but because she refused to let what the world withheld define what God had already placed inside her. You are fighting the same battle in your own way and in your own season. And you are winning it the same way she won it, not through dramatic, visible, externally celebrated victory, but through the quiet, faithful, daily choosing that looks like nothing from the outside and changes everything from the inside. The spiritual warfare over your life has a purpose that goes beyond your individual story. The enemy is not fighting you just because of what you carry personally. He is fighting you because of what you are connected to, because of the network of lives that your life is meant to touch, because of the people who are waiting, without knowing they are waiting, for the specific gift that you and only you carry into the rooms you were appointed to enter. If he can silence you, he silences them. If he can diminish you, he diminishes what reaches them. The battle over your life is a battle over every life that is in the sphere of your calling. That is why you cannot afford to surrender. Not just for your own sake, though your own sake is reason enough, but for the sake of every person who is waiting for what is inside you. For the sake of the community that your courage will build. For the sake of the testimony that your breakthrough will release into the lives of people who have been told by their own wilderness that breakthroughs are not for people like them. Your victory is not just yours. It is the evidence that becomes someone else's faith. Your rising is not just for you. It is the proof that becomes someone else's permission to rise. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4 says, "The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds." The strongholds that have been built over your mind across the years of opposition, the fortresses of doubt and self-diminishment, and the accumulated belief that you are somehow less than what God says you are. Those strongholds are not permanent. They were built over time through the consistent application of the enemy's most effective tools: repetition, isolation, and the weaponization of your own sensitivity against you. But they can be demolished, not through human effort alone, not through willpower or positive thinking or the sheer force of deciding to believe differently. They are demolished through weapons that carry divine power, through the Word of God spoken into the specific lies that built them, through worship that creates an atmosphere in which those structures cannot stand, through the community of chosen ones who speak truth over each other, in the spaces where the enemy has been whispering, "You are not without weapons. You have never been without weapons. And the ones available to you are more powerful than anything that has ever been deployed against you." The warfare is real, but so is the arsenal. And the God who placed the calling on your life did not send you into the battle unarmed. He equipped you before He commissioned you. He prepared the weapons before He revealed the enemy. And He has been training you in their use through every hard season you have endured, whether you recognized it as training at the time or not. Right now, pause for just a moment and type these words in the comments. I am chosen. Let those 3 words be your declaration over the warfare. Let them be your announcement to heaven that you know who you are. Let them be the sound of a chosen one, stepping out of the posture of the besieged and into the posture of the victorious. I am chosen, not because the circumstances confirm it, not because the battle has been easy, but because God said it, and His word is the only standard of truth that has ever mattered. The battle is not over, but the outcome has been decided. And the chosen one who types those words today is the same chosen one who is about to watch God step into the warfare in a way that changes everything. Not because the declaration is a magic formula, but because it is the truth. And the truth, spoken out loud by a person who has earned the right to speak it through seasons of faithful endurance, carries a power that the darkness has no answer for. You are chosen. The warfare confirms it, and the victory that is coming will prove it to every force that has ever dared to suggest otherwise. Something is already moving. You may not be able to see it yet with the eyes you use to navigate the ordinary surface of your days, but in the deeper place, in the place where the Spirit knows before the mind has caught up, something has already shifted. The warfare that was described in the previous section, the real and specific and targeted resistance that has followed you through your most significant seasons, that warfare has not diminished your destiny. It has not eroded the promise. It has not worn down the resolve of the God who made the promise in the first place. What it has done, what all of it has done, every hard season, every closed door, every night of pressing, is position you. It has moved you, without your full awareness, into the exact location where what God has been preparing is about to arrive. There is a moment in the life of every chosen one when the things that were happening beneath the surface begin to become visible above it. When the root system that was developing in the hidden season begins to push through the ground in ways that cannot be ignored or explained away. When the connections that God was making in the invisible places suddenly materialize as people and opportunities and open doors that arrive with a precision that defies the logic of coincidence. When the word that was spoken over your life before you were born begins to take on visible, tangible, undeniable shape in the world around you. That moment is not far from you. In fact, for some of you receiving these words, it has already begun. You have probably felt it without knowing what to call it. A shift in the quality of the silence. A sense that something has changed in the atmosphere of your life, even though nothing on the surface looks dramatically different yet. A recurring thought that keeps returning with the clarity and persistence of something that is not generated by your own mind, but is being pressed into your awareness by a source outside yourself. A series of small things that on their own would mean nothing, but that together form a pattern that your spirit recognizes, even when your logic has not yet caught up. These are not accidents. These are the early signs of a miracle that is already in motion. The first visible edges of something that has been building beneath the surface for longer than you know. God does not announce his miracles before he moves. He moves, and then the movement becomes its own announcement. He does not send a preview before the breakthrough. He sends the breakthrough, and the preview was everything that led up to it, every hard season, every hidden moment of faithfulness. Every choice to believe when believing was the least supported option available. You have been living inside the preview without knowing that is what it was. Every season that felt like a delay was actually a preparation. Every moment that felt like a setback was actually a repositioning. And the repositioning is now complete enough that the movement can begin to surface. The miracle rising in your life is not a single event. It is a season. It is a sustained opening of what has been closed, a sustained releasing of what has been held back, a sustained revelation of what God placed in you before the world had any opinion about it. It will not arrive all at once. It will arrive in waves, each one carrying more than the one before it, each one building on the ground that the previous wave opened up. And the first wave, if you have been paying attention to the quality of your recent days, may have already reached you. The question is not whether the miracle is coming. The question is whether you are positioned to receive it when it arrives. Positioning matters. The chosen ones who miss what God releases in their season are not the ones who lacked faith. They are not the ones who were too broken or too imperfect or too far behind to receive. They are the ones who were looking in the wrong direction when it came. They were watching the door that God had already closed, waiting for it to open again, and missed the window that God had quietly opened behind them, while their eyes were fixed on the wrong place. Positioning is about the direction of your attention. It is about what you are expecting and from where you are expecting it. Expect it from unexpected places. Expect it to come through people you have not yet met. Expect it to arrive in forms that do not match the exact picture you drew of it in your imagination during the long seasons of waiting. God is creative. He is not bound by your mental model of how the miracle should arrive. He is only bound by his own character, his faithfulness, his love, his commitment to the promises he made before the wilderness began. The form of the miracle may surprise you. The timing of it may surprise you. The channel through which it comes may be completely unlike anything you anticipated. But the fact of it, the reality of a God who is moving on your behalf right now in the unseen places, that is not in question. Leah did not know that the son she named Judah, in a moment of surrendered praise, would become the ancestor of the one who would carry the salvation of the entire world. She did not know that her miracle had dimensions that extended far beyond the borders of her own life, that what God was doing through her was not just for her, but for every person who would ever need a savior. She surrendered to praise without the full picture. She chose to trust without the complete map. And in that choosing, she became part of something so much larger than the small, painful, unloved life she was living from the inside of it. Your miracle has dimensions you cannot currently see. What God is releasing into your life is not just for you, though it is absolutely for you, and you deserve every dimension of it. It is also for the people connected to you, for the community you are about to build, for the generation that will come after you and look back at your life as the moment when the lineage changed, when the pattern broke, when someone in their family tree or their spiritual community chose to believe in the middle of the wilderness and the choosing became the hinge on which everything turned. You are a hinge. Your life, your faith, your decision to keep going through every season that tried to stop you, these are not small things in the economy of God. They are the things that He uses to turn the direction of entire family lines, entire communities, entire spheres of influence that have been waiting for someone to break through and make the path passable for everyone who will follow. The miracle rising in your life is a door opening, not just for you, but for everyone who is behind you in the line of the waiting. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 says, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." It will certainly come, not possibly, not hopefully, certainly. The promise has an appointed time, and that appointed time is not controlled by the enemy's resistance, or by the length of the wilderness, or by any human calculation of what is too late, or too far gone, or too long delayed. The appointed time is controlled by the one who appointed it, and He has not revised it. He has not moved it further away. He has been moving you toward it through every season, including the ones that felt most like movement in the wrong direction. The revelation is coming, the appointed time is near, and the chosen one who has been faithful in the waiting is about to discover what it means to receive in a season of release what was promised in a season of preparation. The size of what is coming is proportional to the depth of what the preparation built, and you have been in a deep preparation, deeper than most. Which means what is coming has been built to match that depth, to fill it, to overflow it, to press out into every area of your life and into the lives of everyone connected to you with the fullness of what God always intended when He spoke your name into existence. Do not shrink back from the size of what is coming. Do not reduce it in your imagination to something more manageable, more realistic, more in line with what the wilderness years told you to expect. God did not put you through the wilderness to deliver you a modest improvement on the life you had before it began. He put you through it to deliver you into the fullness of what He envisioned when He formed you, and that fullness has never been modest. It has always been more than you asked, more than you imagined, more than the most optimistic version of your own expectations could have contained. The chosen ones are not built for ordinary outcomes. They are built for the outcomes that make people stop and ask, what happened? Who is this person? Where did this come from? How did this life turn into this? They are built for the testimony that silences the voices that said it was impossible and fills the room with the undeniable presence of a God who did it anyway, who kept His word anyway, who showed up in the appointed time and released what He had been holding in trust for the one who held on long enough to receive it. You held on through seasons that would have broken someone who was not chosen for this, through nights that had no visible morning in them, through the specific and targeted warfare that was described in the previous section and that you have lived through without surrender. You held on, and the holding has not been wasted. It has been counted. It has been honored. And the God who watched every moment of it is the same God who is now stepping into your story with everything that the holding has earned the right to receive. The miracle is not coming. The miracle is rising right now. in this moment, in this breath, in this quiet, unshakable knowing that is settling into the deepest part of you as these words land. The rising has already begun, and what God starts, He finishes. What He opens, no one can close. What He releases over a chosen life that has endured the preparation is unstoppable, undeniable, and more than worth every season it took to get here. You have traveled far in these words, not just through the sections of a message, but through the geography of your own story, through the landscapes of your calling that you have been walking through alone for longer than anyone around you has fully understood. And here, in this final place, there is something important that needs to be said before you carry what you have received back into the ordinary hours of your life. What happened in this space today was not entertainment. It was not information to be filed away and retrieved when convenient. It was an encounter, a real one, between your spirit and the God who designed it, who has been trying to reach you through every available channel, and who used this particular channel, these particular words, this particular moment in your particular season, to say something to you that He has been waiting for you to be ready to hear. You are ready now. That is why you are here. That is why you stayed. That is why every section landed with the weight it carried, because you are at the exact point in your preparation where the word that was always true about you is finally finding ground inside you that is soft enough to receive it and strong enough to hold it. You are not the same person who pressed play at the beginning of this message. Something has shifted. Something that was closed has opened. Something that was buried has surfaced. And the God who orchestrated that shifting is not finished with what He started in you today. Before you go, before you return to the world that is waiting outside this moment, there is a prayer that needs to be spoken. Not a formal prayer, not a performance, not the kind of words that are meant to be heard by anyone other than the God who already knows every syllable of what your art has been trying to say through every season of the wilderness. This is the prayer of the chosen one, who has finally stopped running from the fullness of what they were called to carry. It is your prayer. Receive it as your own. God, you saw me before the world had any record of my existence. You called me before I had done anything to deserve the calling. You watched me through every season I thought was going to be my undoing, and you never once looked away. I have been afraid of the size of what you placed inside me. I have tried to make myself smaller so that the calling would feel less overwhelming, and the risk of failing it feel less catastrophic. I have hidden in the wilderness and told myself it was patience. I have shrunk back from to the doors you opened and told myself it was wisdom. But today something broke open in me. Today I heard my own story in words that I did not write, and I recognized myself in a way that I have not been willing to do for a long time. So right now, in this moment, with whatever faith I have left after every season that tried to take it, I say yes. Yes to the calling, yes to the rising, yes to the miracle that is already moving beneath the surface of my life. Yes. To the frequency you placed in me before I was born. Yes to the community of chosen ones you are connecting me to. Yes to being used in ways that go beyond what I can currently imagine. I do not have it all together. I do not have all the answers. I am still carrying wounds from seasons that have not fully healed. But I am here, and I am yours. And I trust that the God who began this work in me is faithful enough and powerful enough to complete it. Let what you placed in me rise. Let what you promised over me come. Let the miracle that has been in motion finally become visible. And let my life be the evidence that you keep your word to the ones you choose. Amen. That prayer is not the end of something. It is the beginning. The yes that you just said, whether you said it out loud or whether it moved through you in the silent interior where your truest words live, that yes is the hinge. That is the moment that heaven has been waiting for. Not because God needed your permission to do what He was already doing, but because you needed to give it. You needed to be the one who opened your hands fully, who stopped holding pieces of your life back in reserve, who said without condition, I am yours. Do what you said you would do. He will. He is already doing it. The miracle that has been rising through every section of this journey is not pausing at the end of these words. It is accelerating because you just said yes, because you just aligned your will with the will of the one who designed you, because the chosen one who finally steps into the fullness of their calling creates a momentum that nothing in the natural or the spiritual world can stop. The chosen ones who have gathered in this space today are not strangers to each other, even if they have never met. They share a story. They share a frequency. They share the particular combination of depth and resilience and sensitivity and fire that marks the ones God has set apart for something that the ordinary world does not have categories for. You are part of that community. You have always been part of it. And what is being built here, this space, through these messages, through the connections that are forming between chosen ones who are finding each other across distances that should have kept them apart, that is not a small thing. It is a movement, a quiet one, the way all the most significant movements begin, but a real one, gaining ground in the hidden places, building strength in the spaces between the seen and the unseen, gathering the ones who were made for this moment and placing them in proximity to each other so that the combined weight of their callings can shift the atmosphere of the places they are sent into. You are part of this movement, and your participation in it matters more than you currently know. If this message has been real to you, if it has landed with the weight of something that was meant specifically for you, then the most important thing you can do right now is stay connected. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so. Not as a transaction, but as a commitment to staying in the room where the fire keeps burning. Like this video as your acknowledgement that something real happened here today, that the word landed, that the chosen one in you recognized itself in what was spoken. Share this message with the person whose name has been in your mind since the beginning. You already know who they are. You have been thinking about them through every section, and something in you has been saying, they need this. This is for them too. Trust that. Send it. Be the channel through which this word finds the person it was also meant for. And if you feel the pull to sow into what is being built in this space, if something in your spirit rises with the desire to be a financial partner in this work, to help sustain and expand the reach of these messages into the lives that still need to find them, the link to give is in the description and in the pinned comment. Every seed sown into ground where God is moving carries a harvest that goes beyond what the natural eye can calculate. Trust the pull, sow into it, and watch what God does with what you place in His hands. The chosen ones do not arrive at their destiny by accident. They arrive because they made a series of decisions across the seasons of their preparation that kept them moving in the right direction, even when the direction was not clearly visible. Today you made one of those decisions. You stayed, you listened, you received, you prayed, you said yes. And those decisions are part of the path that is leading you into the fullness of everything God spoke over your life before you were born. Go now, not as the person who began this message, uncertain and waited and carrying the quiet question of whether the best was behind you or ahead. Go as the chosen one you have always been, confirmed today in the deepest place, reminded of the frequency you carry, reconnected to the community you belong to, and filled with the unshakable knowing that the God who chose you is stepping into your story right now with everything He promised. The miracle is not coming. It is rising. You are not waiting anymore. You are walking, and the path beneath your feet is getting brighter with every step, shining ever brighter, until the full light of day breaks over everything God has been preparing in you through every season it took to get here. You are chosen. You are rising, and the best is so far ahead of you that what you are leaving behind does not deserve another backward glance. Go walk, rise. You made it to the end of this message, and that is not a small thing. Not everyone who begins a journey like this one stays until the final word, but you did. And the fact that you are still here, that something kept you present through every section, every truth, every moment of recognition, is itself a sign. The chosen ones do not leave before the word is finished. They stay, they receive. They carry what they were given back into the world that is waiting for what they now hold. Everything spoken in this space today was spoken for you, not for a general audience, not for a nameless crowd, but for the specific person you are, in the specific season you are in, carrying the specific calling that was placed on your life before the world had any record of your name. God does not waste words. He does not send a message without a recipient. You were the recipient today, and what you received is yours to keep, to build on, to carry forward into every room you were appointed to enter. The journey that began in these words does not end here. It continues in the quiet of your daily life, in the small choices that build into the large ones, in the faithfulness of the ordinary moments that God is always watching and always honoring. You are not finished becoming who He made you to be. You are just beginning the most significant chapter of that becoming. Stay connected, stay in the fire, stay in community with the chosen ones who are walking the same road. And above all, stay in the presence of the God who chose you, who sees you, who has never once looked away, and who is even now making all things new in the story of your extraordinary, chosen, rising life.